Hi, and welcome back. Today we're gonna have a closer look at Minsk from Chaos Devices, a compact stereo image processor that can also be used to turn mono into stereo signals. Here is a little preview of how it sounds. In this video, I'll explain how Minsk works. But it's the kind of module you have to experiment with and listen to. So that's what we're gonna focus on. If you'd like to support this video series, or you want to get access to the PDF sheets of the illustrations I use in this and many of my other videos, have a look at my Patreon. But now, let's dive right in. Let's start with a look at the basic operations and the features available from the front panel. Minsk is a compact 6 HP stereo image processor with simple operations but complex processing. There is a left and right input here for stereo signals. The left input can be used for mono signals as well. When you feed the module a stereo signal, the left and right side are compared and converted to a mid signal and a side signal. Or in other words, a signal centered in the stereo field and a signal that lives on the sides. The module offers a send and return jack for both the mid and side signal. That means that either or both of the signals can be manipulated and shaped further by adding other modules like filters or effects in the signal chain. The results of the mid and side signal are converted back into a stereo signal at the end. And here at the bottom of the module you find the stereo output. With the stereo signal patched up, you can use the image knob here to set the gain for the mid and side signals. With the knob in the middle, the balance between the mid and side signal is equal, and the incoming stereo signal is unaffected. Turning the knob counterclockwise removes the side signal and thus brings the incoming signal down to mono. Clockwise from center position, the side signal will be amplified while the mid signal is reduced. This widens the stereo field while removing the mid signal. The image knob also comes with an input for external control voltages. Hiding here in the middle is an important little three-way switch, used to add an additional feeling of depth to the incoming signal. It can be set to off if you want to treat the incoming signal in a clean way, or you can pick one of two added dimension variations, called A and B. These can really have different effect on different types of audio. When you want to create a stereo signal from a mono input, you have to select either of the two modes that add depth to the incoming signal. Otherwise, the mono audio can't be split up into a mid and side signal. With one of the modes selected, you can use the image knob again to control the balance between the created mid and side signals. Final things on the module to mention are a little knob to adjust the left and right output balance, just in case it's out of shape due to heavy processing. Another little switch that can apply subtle high-pass filtering to the side signal. It can be off, cut at 50 or at 300 Hz. And this arrangement of 6 LEDs that gives you insight in what's going on. Vertical red LEDs show activity in the mid signal, horizontal LEDs activity in the side signal, and the orange ones show activity in the final left and right output. As the module is called a stereo image processor, let's start with a few patches feeding the module a stereo signal. Here we start with a simple stereo drone voice made with an oscillator, filter and stereo granular processor. The stereo signal is sent to Minsk and then an outboard mixer. Using the switches and image knob, you have good control over the stereo image of the signal. To add more interest and movement to the sound, let's insert a spring reverb by patching it to the send and return of the side signal. An LFO with attenuator is used to modulate the image control, sweeping the signal from the mid to the sides of the stereo field. In this setup, a simple stereo voice is made with an oscillator, filter and panner. The stereo signal from the panner is sent through the Chaos device's Minsk. A sequencer is creating a melody for the oscillator and triggering a simple attack decay envelope modulating the filter. A triangle LFO hovering around low audio rates is modulating the panner, and another triangle LFO is modulating the speed of the first LFO, creating a dynamic stereo field before processing. Now let's add some depth to both the mid and side signals by using the inserts to process each of them with a delay with different settings. The delay used on the side signal is modulated with a square wave LFO, creating glitchy shifts in the delay time. And I use the manual gate to transpose the sequence every now and then. In the next patch, a sample player is used to create a drum sequence. A CV sequencer is used to trigger the drums and a CV output to select samples. The result is sent through a frequency shifter. Both the up and down shifted versions of the signal are used as a stereo signal and sent through the Minsk. For added stereo movement, the mid as well as the side signal are sent through individual wave folders. To modulate the folders, an LFO in sample and hold mode is clocked by the sequencer and modulating one of the folders. A copy of that signal is inverted and modulating the other folder. In this setup, the wave folders are used to create distortion, shifting from the mid to the side of the stereo field. Here is the exact same bass patch with a sample player, sequencer and frequency shifter creating a drum pattern. But this time both the mid and side signal are sent through a bandpass filter. One of them is modulated with a free-running sine wave LFO, and again the other with an inverted version of that LFO. In this setup, the filtered and unfiltered version of the sound will alternate between the center and sides. Of course, you can also process non-modular signals. In this setup, I use the Erica Synth Syntrax as an external synth to create a stereo voice and run it through the Minsk. The mid signal is processed with a delay and the side signal is processed with a bandpass filter. That filter is modulated with a sine wave LFO. As long as you use one of the two added dimension effects, you can use all of the previous patch ideas on a mono signal as well. But here are a few examples. In this first simple setup, an oscillator, filter, sequencer and envelope are used to create a mono synth voice. In this case, the Minsk can be used to add stereo depth to the sound. Without added dimension effect, the image knob has no effect on a mono signal. Dimension B adds a subtle stereo effect. Dimension A also alters the mono signal but adds a deeper stereo field. In this setup, the send inserts can be used to create a wide stereo effect. For example, when you patch up a reverb in the signal path. To be clear, the reverb used is just a simple mono reverb, but it will give a lovely stereo result. In this case, the image knob can be used like an effect send, mixing in a stereo effect, all the way to full wet. Let's make a variation of the simple voice with a more frequency-rich signal by running the oscillator through a fast delay before the filter and Minsk. Again, a sequencer is used to create a melody and trigger an envelope modulating the filter. A frequency shifter is used in the send-return patch of the side channel to bring out even more metallic sounds. And finally, a smooth random voltage is modulating the delay, as well as the frequency shifter. Here, a sampler and sequencer are used to create some drums like we did before. Only this time a mono signal is produced, and the Minsk is added to create stereo depth. A smooth random voltage is modulating the image, and the side signal is sent to a drive module with a lot of drive, and then attenuated on the way back in to prevent the Minsk from clipping. Just for fun, when you modulate the image of Minsk with something like an LFO or smooth random voltage, the sound is modulated from mid to side. You can also take and listen to the insert sense from both the mid and side signal, which creates simple panning when modulated. Here's a little example with a simple voice. The Chaos Devices Minsk allows you to push stereo experiments into the extreme, and that's a good thing. You can do anything from adding subtle depth to a sound to isolate and process the side signal only. An extreme stereo field, just to give an example, can be great if you're performing in a small experimental space where the audience can experience a proper stereo setup. But with all devices that heavily manipulate the stereo field, it's good practice to keep an eye on how your sound sounds when summed back to mono, especially if you're interested in making commercial releases. When a very different left and right signal are used to create one mono signal, the result can sound really different from what you perceive in stereo. Sounds that are similar but slightly different might fight over the same frequencies and clutter up a mix. And sounds with inverted phases might cancel each other out and create huge volume differences. The LEDs on Minsk that visualize what's happening in the stereo field really are a good help. For example, to see if the mid signal is dropping out or if the stereo is out of balance. But I also in general get a lot of use out of a simple monitor controller that lets you sum to mono while working on sounds. Most DAWs have a simple sum to mono plugin as well. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I know I had fun making it. You can browse through any of my modular playlists if you want to learn more. Also, smash that like, subscribe and bell button if you want to see more modular content from me. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching and see you next time.